guys. So sorry that I wasn't with you yesterday when you were learning about the Myers-Briggs. It's one of my favorite things, and I'm looking forward to your assignments. I did want to go ahead and talk to you a little bit about the Myers-Briggs section of your projects. So basically what I'm wanting you to do is make a guesstimate as to someone who's opposite of you on each of the dichotomies. And if you go to modules, the slides that I generally use, I know Dr. Allison didn't use them, but you have the reference slides and it says something like MBTI _ Jung, and then long or something. So those, you really need to be referencing those slides when you work on the project. So for example, you will choose, if you're extroverted, you will choose a family member or a close friend, a roommate, somebody that you know really well that you think is opposite. They don't have to take the test. But if you think you're extroverted and you can compare yourself to someone who's introverted, that's what I'm interested in, is really exploring the differences between the dichotomies. And for example, I'm extroverted and my husband is introverted. And the way we feel on Friday after a week of work is different. He's really ready to be just the two of us, just have a quiet evening, versus getting together with family or friends, getting out and doing something. So he's really ready to recharge with that introversion. Whereas I get kind of ramped up through the week. The more people I'm around, the more interested I am in doing something. And so that's something that we've had to negotiate through the years. And for sure, he's compromised many, many times in doing things and kind of pushing his introversion during those times. Same thing for the next dichotomy. So sensing versus intuitive. If you're sensing, then you're very detail oriented. You notice everything in your environment. Intuitive people they're a little more dreamy. They look out. They're kind of deep in their thoughts. They're making spiritual connections or just deep kind of in their own thoughts. Whereas sensing people walk through the world noticing what they see, touch, feel, hear, taste, kinds of things. They notice the details. For example, I'm intuitive. I walked out of the library. I'd been working at ACU 2 or 3 years. I walk out of the library and it's a beautiful spring day and I look across to the bean and I see wildcats spelled out in shrubbery. And I was like, wow, where did those shrubs come from? It says wildcats right there, just in shrubs. And that's something that most sensors would notice. They would have already seen the things in their environment, where I usually walk around kind of deep in thoughts. I always tell Danny, yeah, I'm having deep thoughts when I bump into things and so forth, because that's where I am in my head, making connections and so forth, where sensors are way more practical. They're in the present right there. And intuitives like to dream. They like to think about the future. You're the ones in the relationship that are like, oh, and then in 5 years we can do this and we can move there. And if you're dating someone that's very sensing, they're like right here in the present. They're like, look, I just got to pay my electric bill this month. And they're very focused on the here and now. So that can cause some conflict in those. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to give you some deep examples. What I don't want you to do is say, I'm very detail oriented and my boyfriend is more, future oriented. No, that's not an example. That's a description. So if it's some words that you're pulling off the slide, that's probably not an example. I want you to really think about how you're applying that information. That's what we do in psychology. Thinking versus feeling. The thinkers are very practical. They're objective. They make lists of pros and cons, and they make decisions very quickly. So this is about your decision making. Look at the slide. It says how you make decisions. This is not whether you're thinking or feeling. We're all thinking and feeling. You all can make lists of pros and cons, but it's really about how you make an approach. So if you want a good guiding question for that, how did you decide where you're going to college? That's a really good question. How did you decide whether to take this job or that job? to change your major? What was your approach? Was it more of a gut feeling, like this is the place for me? I love ACU. It's just like I feel right here. Versus here are the lists. So feelers often can take a long time to make decisions because they get really bogged down in the feelings and the relationships and how this affects this person or that person. So make sure on the thinking feeling dichotomy that you are thinking about your decision making, not whether you're thinking or feeling. Okay. And then the last one is just my favorite to talk about, judging versus perceiving. Judgers are scheduled, they're organized, they like to know what today holds. Not very flexible. Don't like it when their plans change. Famous for saying things like, let me check my calendar. Or, I'm sorry, I had already planned X, Y, or Z. Perceivers are more spontaneous. They do not like to be held down to a schedule. They're free-spirited, they're flexible, and they're famous for saying, let's just play that by ear. Let's just play that by ear. You ask them, if a judger asks a perceiver to do something on, the weekend, it's Tuesday, the perceiver will be like, oh yeah, we'll see. We'll see. And in their mind, they may agree, and they may change their mind, or they may just not be pinned down. Perceivers do not like to be pinned down. And they're also very flexible when it comes to adjusting their schedule. So that is definitely something like very blessed to have grandparents in town, and we had one grandmother of each. So Danny's grandmother, very much a judger. And if, say, when the kids were little, I would call and say, oh gosh, Kyla has a fever. If I'd called his mom, I would call my mom first, for sure, but she didn't always answer her phone. So I called Danny's mom. Kyla has a fever. Can you go get her? I've just got to finish up this class, and then I'll come get her from you. She might say something like this. Well, oh gosh, I would love to, but I'm going to the grocery store at 9:00. And I'd be like, okay, well, let me just try my mom. I'm sure she can get her. Let me reach out to her again, because I bet we can work it out. Or maybe Danny can leave work, which Danny could never leave work. He's a judger, and he hates to do things on the fly. Anyway, so I call my mom. Now, keep in mind, my mother may actually be at the grocery store. Picks up her phone. She's got a basket full of groceries. Mom, Kyle's got a fever. Can you go get her? And then I'll come get her as soon as I'm through with class. She'd be like, sure. Leave the basket right there. Take off. Do they love the grandchildren any less? No, they're both great grandparents. Well, not great grandparents, but they were both wonderful grandmothers. But one was flexible. Now, in the meantime, Danny's mother has readjusted the schedule in her head and calls me back and says, oh, of course I can do that. Of course I could do that. So if I really needed her to, I would do this, and then I would just wait for her to call, because she would. She just had to just adjust it in her head. Danny's like this. My daughter Hannah's like this. Kyla and I are like, we float with anything. We can roll with anything. And so perceivers are really good in emergencies and just when things change. But judgers get so upset with them. So the JP dichotomy, if you're thinking about examples, there's a lot of conflict in this area. So you want to think about, like, who in your family gets to church early, who is chronically late, and you've probably got your judgers versus your perceivers. If you have a color-coded calendar and you get really upset when, Snowvid comes and you have to change things, then you're probably judger. Those are examples. So again, look at your slides when you're comparing. And you can compare 4 different people. It doesn't have to be the same person, just, for each dichotomy. And if you're kind of in the middle, or if you took 2 tests and you're one or the other, just choose. I don't know. You know yourself. Compare yourself to someone opposite. All right. And then the last little piece is thinking about how you can better relate to people who are different from you. So what I'd really like you to do is think about people who drive you crazy, and understanding things about their personality and how you can get along better with them because you understand personality theory a little better. That's really what I want there. I want you to dig deep, and be personal and just think about how you can improve relationships, whether it's work relationships, family, roommates. I mean, you know, you've had some roommates that drive you crazy. Think about why and which of these dichotomies seems to be the reason. Okay. In terms of the slides, I'm still really working towards that Tuesday deadline. But, you know, if you feel like you need some FaceTime with me, we could push it a little bit, maybe Tuesday midnight. But I want you to ask permission for that. Like, email me first. I may punt it to Amy or Katie to respond to you if I feel like they can, and they probably can. But, you know, enjoy this assignment. I think it is a fun assignment. I've had one question like about format and the first page. I don't care. I want it to be attractive. Really enjoy the pictures. So any pictures that you put in these each of the dichotomies, I just kind of enjoy that. You could do one slide per dichotomy, or you could do like one for yourself as the judger and your sister as the perceiver. I'm not super concerned about that. A lot of people do 2 per dichotomy, so one for the extroversion, one for the introversion, but it doesn't matter. Like, you can make that work. It's not, you'll use more words on this PowerPoint than you might have learned in some communication class. It's not to present. It's just for me to read. So I'm trying to think if there's any other questions. Oh, I am going to send you the ONET link for the Holland, because what I wanted you to do is search, if you're artistic, social, investigative, look up some jobs with that, see if there's something that piques your curiosity. But at the end of the day, I don't know what that's going to say. So you just pick 3 from ONET to explore. Enjoy poking around that website. That's part of the reason I want you doing that, is so that you explore that website. It's really an awesome resource. You might just bookmark it. Good resource for your friends and so forth too. I think that's all. So I still need to send you that link, but hopefully this is helpful for you guys. Have a good weekend.